Cheers. Just a simple question. Do you really understand why pharmaceutical drugs are always given together with the painkillers? If you have these symptoms or you know somebody who has the same symptoms, it's important you take action. Instead of waiting, then it becomes costly. You can call us. You can reach us on this number. Let me pose a question. When was the last time you took sugarcane juice, or you ate sugarcane? It actually refreshes the liver. So the liver, we have noticed, is a super organ. But then what makes it go bad? It goes bad basically because you didn't take good care of it. Maybe you exposed it to hepatic viruses, viruses A, hepatic viruses B, C, D, and E. Maybe you exposed it to pharmaceutical drugs like acetaminophen. There we go again. Pharmaceutical drugs destroying our organs. Yes, as I always say, 75% of pharmaceutical drugs are made directly from plants, but they modify them. I'll give a simple example. Chloroquine that was used to treat malaria. This modification goes through all the drugs. So chloroquine is a modified form of quinine, a natural product found in plants like cinchona. So when they modify quinine, they will form a drug called chloroquine sulfate or chloroquine phosphate. And this is how they do it. They take the compound chloroquine and combine it with an acid, for example, sulfuric acid, to form chloroquine sulfate, which is now used as the drug. This is a salt. From a naturally occurring non-organic quinine to a salt, chloroquine sulfate. Or they take quinine and combine it with phosphoric acid to form chloroquine phosphate, which is also a salt. These phosphate drugs and sulfate drugs, as it were, as we see in chloroquine phosphate and chloroquine sulfate, have adverse effects to the body. And they do this to all drugs that you know. Any drug that you see is a phosphate drug or a sulfate drug that was derived from something else to make it, will do the same harm to you. For drugs that have been modified to sulfate salts, trigger allergies, reduce lung function, aggravate asthmatic symptoms, and increase risk of emergency department visits in hospitals and hospitalizations. People who often use pharmaceutical drugs are more likely to keep visiting hospitals to correct one thing or another. It's basically a trap. And drugs that have been modified to phosphates cause changes in the body that pull calcium out of the bones, making the bones weaker. This calcium is deposited in blood vessels, lungs, eyes, kidneys to cause kidney stones, and the heart, which risks heart failure. This slowly destroys these organs, which will make you visit hospitals again and again. Just a simple question. Do you really understand why pharmaceutical drugs are always given together with the painkillers? It's basic knowledge that painkillers fool the body to tell the body that everything's okay, but the drugs are actually harming you. Some of the drugs that are given are Soloplus, Poloxama, sodium lauryl sulfate, Igepol, etc. And phosphate salt drugs are and include analopidine, lisinopril, omeprazole. So it is the liver that works so hard to save you. Otherwise, you will fail. Did you know chloroquine phosphate was not permitted in Japan following reports of retinopathy. Yet the same chloroquine was being pumped into Africa. Retinopathy is the damage of retina, that part behind the eye that captures images and sends them to the brain so that we can see. So most people who have retinopathy have sight problems. They'll be forced to wear glasses. So maybe you've been using these drugs that have phosphates and it has caused your eyes. And do you know chloroquine sulfate is rarely used in the USA since 1960s after so many lawsuits which forced the pharmaceutical company Winthrop Laboratories to withdraw it, but it directed it to places and countries which do not have counter-checking systems like Mexico and Africa. That's where we educated herbalists and herbal doctors come in handy to warn you and to guide you. You only need to listen, process, and take action at will. So it's not only on chloroquine, any other pharmaceutical drug that has sulfate, phosphate, etc. has issues with your body. And it's your liver now which is forced to overwork. And with this, it might fail. The liver fails. That's what we are talking about, the liver, taking care of your liver. Maybe I can dive into pharmacokinetics of this chloroquine. When you take chloroquine phosphate or sulfate, this modified salt binds with the melanin compound that determines your skin color. It's not only in the skin, it's also in the brain. So whatever happens to these places happens everywhere. It's also in the brain, it's also in the retina. That's what we have just talked about, retinopathy. It's also in the substantia nigra of the brain. This combination of chloroquine phosphate or sulfate with the melanin causes the toxicity. It prevents melanin from producing lamellar bodies, whose function is to produce substances that act as membrane barriers. So if it's happening in the brain, then the function of your brain will be weakened. This similarly happens to the eyes, the lungs, and other places where melanin is found. Maybe you took too many soft drinks. Some soft drinks have compounds like caramel, which causes cancer. Being overweight causes fats also to accumulate inside the liver. And when fats accumulate inside the liver, the veins that run through the liver are blocked, therefore slowing it down. This fats accumulation causes the liver to swell, and it will cause scars. If you have unprotected sex, you might be infected with hepatitis B, which people get infected through unprotected sex. Hepatitis B causes cancer. If you don't drink a lot of water, if you drink less water, you are overworking the liver because blood is thick and is forced to go through the liver. Smoking causes necroinflammation. So, you have discovered that your liver is in trouble. What do you need? A glass of room temperature water, normal water, a spoon, and your medicine. It's well labeled. You add half teaspoon of this medicine in your glass of water. Mix it. And drink twice daily, once in the morning and once in the evening. The plant chemicals in this medicine that strengthen and rejuvenates the liver are trace element selenium, epsilin, lipoic acid, and quercetin. See you in the next post. Cheers.